Today, we will be specifically discussing an evaluation that was recently conducted on ADB's water sector operations. I think all of you who are here had sent a link of the water evaluation report. So the discussion today will not be limited to the lessons of this evaluation, but we'll try to take the discussion forward. And what makes this platform especially pertinent for India is that a lot of case studies that were conducted when this evaluation was done were from India. In fact, I think 48 Sonia projects were evaluated from India. So the lessons that are there in this evaluation are very pertinent for India as well. But that a little later, a little bit on IED. So we are part of the Asian Development Bank, but this is an independent department. When I say independent, I mean that we do not report to the president or the management. We report to the board of directors and enjoy a lot of autonomy. So the report that you see might not have made many people very happy, but there's a lot of gravitas that is attached to the findings of this evaluation. So I won't say any more. We have an esteemed panel of panelists here, but also we have Manny and the others, some very important guests as well. And we hope that in the question and answer session, you will ask your questions and make this as interactive because we want to learn from you as well. Right. So I had mentioned the IED evaluation of ADB's water sector operations. We have a short video that will communicate to you some of the key lessons and give you a context to today's discussion.
Water is at the heart of a country's social and economic development. Globally, rapid economic growth has resulted in the unplanned and unsustainable use of land and water resources. Climate change aggravates conditions by causing frequent extreme rainfall events, flooding, and droughts. Managing water resources efficiently and extending quality services such as irrigation, water supply, sanitation, and wastewater treatment is of critical importance. Asian Development Bank's Independent Evaluation Department recently evaluated the bank's water sector operations.
Water is one of ADB's key operational areas. IED's evaluation of ADB's engagement in the water sector takes stock of the progress made during the last decade, and it identifies important lessons to guide future operations in improving water resource management and strengthening water security in the region.
Independent evaluations of ADB's integrated water management in India say, over the years, ADB's project management and expertise coupled with government commitment led to improvements in water supply infrastructure, delivery, conservation, and system efficiencies. Political reluctance to raise water tariffs lead to challenges in project sustainability. Design, build, operate contract modalities were used for sustainable O&M of assets. ADB should support private sector investments in the water sector through its NSOs and PPPs. ADB should pursue replication of successes and good practices.
Evaluation also found greater focus is needed on increasing the efficiency and productivity of water use, especially in agriculture, which consumes most of it. Greater attention is also needed to different uses of water for improved ecological services, social equity, and environmental sustainability. Reducing losses in the water distribution system will also yield climate adaptation benefits by addressing growing water scarcities arising from climate change.
Water can be a deal maker for India in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And for this, partnerships between all development partners, including governments, the private sector, and civil society, will be crucial.
Right, so we hope that the video will set context to today's discussion. Before I move ahead, I'd like to quickly introduce the team that we have together. We have the production team who manages everything, Jillian, Twinkle, and Leanne there. And I'd like to also introduce Sonia Chand Sandhu. Sonia is the principal evaluation specialist at our department, and she headed the Indian case study when this evaluation was being conducted. And I think there can be no better person than to put the India context together for this discussion. Sonia, a brief presentation from you. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Saleha. I think the context is already set, and I don't think you want to listen to me too much. We have a very illustrious panel, and all of you are such experts in the sector. But what I'm really going to try to do, as Saleha mentioned, is just basically share a snapshot of how the larger water sector evaluation cascaded to the India context and some key messages that emerged. Now, India is a vast country, very diverse, and water is a thread that binds us all. So it's very difficult to contextualize to that granularity, but I will try my best. And of course, the report is all available for you all to see. Next slide, Mayan. So basically, what we did to cascade the broader evaluation questions that you saw in the video. There was a desk study of almost, like Saleha mentioned, almost 50 projects across 10 years, 10 to 11 years, and across different states, across the various modalities, across technical assistance programs. So it was a very rich evidence based on secondary data that we gathered. And we also triangulated that with the primary data collection from 5 case study states that we picked. And these were picked across geographical regions. We further triangulated that with focus group discussions. And the challenge, as we all are aware, was the COVID. We were in a pandemic period. There was no travel allowed, but we tried to use, to the best of our ability, phones, mobile, and thanks to Digital India, we were able to reach a number of villages and a number of beneficiaries from these projects that were already completed. Next slide again. So these were the states that we looked at. Madhya Pradesh for urban and irrigation efficiency, Kolkata Environment Improvement Project, Assam Integrated Flood Reduction Project, and also and the Karnataka, we looked at 2 projects wherein there was water resource management as well as ADB's engagement in the urban sector. And as you can see, in terms of numbers, the total commitment of the urban water subsectors was about 13 billion, and commitments for rural water subsectors almost about 11 billion, which is 44% share of the total. And the case studies, why were these projects picked? Largely criteria being ADB's engagement. There was value additions from performance in all of these sectors, and also across geographies. It is, like we know, it is hard. We deal with different governance systems in India, and water is so highly contextual to almost the district level that it's very difficult to unify messages. But that it was a tall ask for us. So what were we trying to ask through the secondary and primary data? What has been achieved so far in the scope of ADB's operations? What could be the roadmap for sustainability moving forward? And that would cover institutions, governance, technical ability, innovation, knowledge base, and what were those value additions that ADB could bring going forward in our next country partnership strategy. So next, please. So just to give you a sense of the portfolio snapshot, you can see ADB's engagement has been largely in the urban water supply sanitation sector, looking at production efficiencies, non-revenue water reduction, and tariff situations in various projects. Multiple successes. It is a difficult area, But nevertheless, ADB's operations did show a lot of trending upward type improvements in all of these sectors. A lot needs to still be done. As you can see, the percentage in other areas, like especially agriculture, water resources management, and integrating that area with the urban water supply management, looking at overall sustainability of water sources. It's a very tall ask. And therefore, when I get to the messages, you'll know why those messages emerged. So next, please. It's very hard also to harmonize messages across 29 states. But when we did all of this triangulation and almost in tune with alignment with what you heard in the video, these cascaded down to really enhancing institutional mechanisms, not only at national and subnational level, but all the way to block and panchayat level. Accountability of water resources, attribution towards larger water resources management is an issue, involvement in women in decision-making, and innovating with financial instruments. We found that there's a lot of demand also from the grassroots, and we can all do more. ADB included working with, with other donor agencies, really optimizing comparative advantage. Say, for example, World Bank working at a little bit of a macro level on hydrology, national hydrology related projects. How do those cascade down to ADB's comparative advantage at operational level? A lot of room for engagement on capacity building, and linked to that is optimizing our financial modalities. So there's a lot of opportunity to look at how a combination of investment loans and technical assistance programs, which ADB does, can be enhanced, can be optimized. In various states, there was room for various needs. For example, capacity development, not only just for the water resource agencies, but for the entire ecosystem, contractors, suppliers, procurement, so they also need to understand the overall objective of what we are trying to do with integrated water resource management. So there was some good practices which can be built on, like using data better, which Karnataka has done with their All India Institute for Water Resource Management. And that has been a very long, deep engagement with ADB. So it's also consistent engagement with ADB and or with the agency involved. And we also met a number of donor agencies like KFW, World Bank, JICA, AIIB, and everybody is touching some aspect of this big canvas of IWRM. So what is that comparative advantage that ADB has and can be optimized? I think the technical assistance programs provide a lot of opportunity to do that. So that was one very important message that emerged, especially for India, and how to optimize those gains and look at issues which were lacking. For example, development of river basin plans, unit of analysis using watersheds, stakeholder engagement, participatory irrigation management, which India has already shown a lot of good practice. So looking at what India has done well and how can that be catalyzed through our programs to better build capacity, and also using technology, and at the end of the day, enhance the competitiveness, enhance the institutional mechanisms at all levels towards improving decision-making in IWRM. So I know I've said a mouthful, and it may not be new for anybody, but it is so contextual, this issue that we are dealing with, that with every I would say with every country partnership strategy period, if you're familiar with ADB's country partnership strategy approach, we engage a lot of stakeholders and try to identify those areas. So this is an opportune time for this study to have presented these messages and how states can prioritize what they can optimize through ADB's forthcoming country partnership strategy. So I'll stop there. And be happy to answer, as Saleha mentioned, we are around, and the report is available. So we're happy to engage further and answer this. Thank you again, Saleha.
All right. Thank you very much, Sonia. And, at the end of the video, you all saw that we had said that it's very important for all stakeholders to work together. And we've partnered with NITI-Aayog. We are very, very fortunate that we've done that. And with us today is a vice chairperson of NITI-Aayog, Mr. Suman Bery. And I'd like to invite him to say a couple of some words.
Dr. Rajendra Singh, Ms. Susan Abraham, Dr. Ridhima Solanki, colleagues from ADB, my colleague from NITI-Aayog, Sanjay Kumar. Thank you, Manny, and the IED at ADB for inviting me for the session to learn on the very important topic of water security. I'm very pleased that I was here for these introductory presentations to give me more than you were able to provide in your very helpful briefing notes on the content of that evaluation. There's no question that access to water is a fundamental human right, yet millions of people around the world still lack access to it. 4 billion people, almost 2/3 of the world's population, experience severe water scarcity for at least 1 month every year. And I'm not sure how many of those are in India. In addition to increasing water demand and continuing urbanization, there is greater uncertainty with respect to water availability because of climate change. Managing scarce water resources efficiently while providing quality irrigation, water supply, sanitation, and wastewater treatment has therefore acquired critical importance. With 18% of the world's population and only 4% of global water resources, India is facing water stress, and climate change is likely to exacerbate this pressure on water resources, even as the frequency and intensity of floods, droughts, cloudbursts increases. Therefore, ensuring water security requires a strong focus on water conservation and management, supported by effective institutions, policies, and regulatory frameworks. Over the past few years, India has made significant strides in the augmentation, conservation, and effective management of water resources, in addition to various programs like the Jal Jan Abhiyan and Catch the Rain movement implemented by the government. The 15th Finance Commission has also dedicated 60% of the total grants earmarked for local bodies like Panchayati Raj institutions towards drinking water supply, rainwater harvesting and sanitation. For cities with a population of over 5 million, I'm not sure this is right, 2/3 of the allocation under the Challenge Fund is devoted for meeting service level benchmarks. To enable effective monitoring, NITI-Aayog has developed a composite water management index. The index provides useful information as states, as also for relevant central ministries, paving the way for them to formulate and implement suitable strategies for better management of water resources. ADB's evaluation of its water sector policy highlights the importance of reorienting policies to keep pace with the changing water context in the region. But as we've already heard, a very important dimension of this is the specific state-level context. I hope to hear more from the panelists about, as it were, where the gaps are between state focus on water, the city focus on water, and the need to optimize water management at the basin level, which can often transcend the state boundaries, which of course raises difficult judicial and constitutional issues. I've only noticed that a predecessor of Manny's, Vinod Thomas, is in the room. Vinod, thank you for finding time to join the session right now. The ADB's evaluation resonates with our belief at NITI-Aayog that evaluations play a critical role in generating knowledge about works and what does not, as well as how government and other stakeholders can strengthen the design and implementation of policies and schemes. My colleague Sanjay will be making Kumar will be making concluding remarks, and will talk more about the challenges and differences between evaluation, creating an evaluation culture in a government, largely at the union ministry level, but through an initiative called State Support Mission, our DMEO is now bringing the evaluation culture to individual states, and to the extent that ADB has engaged states in these evaluations in this sector, I'm sure that the methodology is pioneered by ADB will be of use to the DMEO. So let me just conclude with 3 or 4 broader comments on where we go from here at a moment of stress and uncertainty and indeed peril in a rapidly urbanizing country already facing significant adaptation challenges. I would hope that both the studies themselves and that the absorption of the results of these studies by those in this room and DMEO itself would get some lessons on the political economy of change in the water sector. This is a very reformist government, but it was, in a sense, compelled to retract certain of its ideas on agricultural reform, very well founded, because of political economy reasons. I do know that in my city, Delhi, the city in which I was born, that there was a huge uproar when the issue of water pricing was raised some years ago. That does not seem to be reflected in my water bills, which are reasonably healthy. But nonetheless, the issue of water as a right and water as a civic service, the difference I may say between the Anglo-Saxon tradition and the continental tradition. I mean, in France, companies like Veolia have always seen civic water as being as much of a public utility as electricity. So there is that conceptual issue, I think, which has to be addressed. Secondly, what I've already said, and where NITI-Aayog has a very important role to play, is how these issues actually are implemented at the state level. And then finally, what is the best mechanism for learning? Is it really an evaluation report? Is it case studies of successful change? Should NITI work with the evaluation ID to extract from the work that you've done case studies that we could use under our recent initiative of state support missions? Because ultimately, getting these lessons to state governments is as important as getting them to the union government. So at this point, I will step down. I'm here to learn. We have a very distinguished panel, but just to indicate both my respect for the office of the DG evaluation at the ADB, to acknowledge the important partnership between India and the ADB, and to provide encouragement to my colleague Sanjay from DMEO. I'm very pleased to have been given this platform. Thank you very much.
मैं अध्यक्ष प्रसन्नता से आप सबका समारोह में स्वागत करता हूँ. Today. But thank you again for coming here to this very important, from our point of view, event, in which we're hoping to try to use the report and analysis that our team has done on evaluation to stimulate what really should be an in-country conversation about the water issues. And as Sonia mentioned, we have a very diverse panel here in various aspects who have different perspectives on the water question. So what I'd like to do is start off, and I'm hoping this can be more of a very informal conversation among friends of what these issues are about. I'd like to start off by, if you could just, in a minute or two, from your own perspective, what do you think are the most priority water issues that you think this country should address over the next 5 years? Vikas, can I start with you, since you're a colleague and I can put you on the spot?
Thank you, sir. Considering our population and the challenges which are prevailing in our country, ADB has been very proactively contributing towards policy, towards institution building, towards people participation, and also addressing the issues related to integration of water resources with the complete value chain, like agriculture development, even the urban water management aspects, and also the beneficiaries at the grassroots level. So this has been our effort, and we have been, to a large extent, has been successful in terms of also addressing the issues related to climate change and adaptation. So this is these are the few aspects which needs to be taken up forward. So case studies, the projects which have been very impactful at the state level. Water is a state subject in India. So all the action which is there is a collective responsibility of the prime responsibility of the states, as well as the federal support is required. So this is what we can start.
Thanks. I think that's an issue that the Vice Chair raised about the different levels of government and how they could coordinate. Susan, over to you from your perspective. But if you had an ask of ADB and the government, what do you think are the main issues that you'd like to address?
Yeah, I mean, the report was great, and it highlighted several things that were very important. And I think it's really important for agriculture, water, health, and nutrition, food, Ministry of Food. I mean, I think it's very important for all these four to work together, because until we have that, I don't think it's going to work. For example, to cite an example, if we're talking about water conservation, we're talking about water conservation in the context of climate change. The moment, the moment you have rainfall in an area, one year the rainfall is very good, and then the farmers are very happy, and the farmers start growing wheat, for example, in the monsoon, in the winter, for their winter crop. They start growing wheat, and then all the water is used up, and then they don't have enough storage for the next year. It's very important for agriculture department and the water department to talk about climate change in the communities, to say we need to restrain the use of water. And we also need to get into multi-cropping. We need to get into an agriculture that is uses much less water intensive. And that will allow us to also improve our water quality, to increase our groundwater resources, and and that will also impact health. As you know, we are also dealing with the crisis of nutrition in the country, and it is only when the food department, agriculture department, and water department, the health department work together will be able to overcome this.
Great to hear that from your point of view, the multidimensionality of the water problem across different areas is really key, including on health. Rajendra Singh, you're a doctor as well as a water specialist. From your perspective, what do you see as the most important issues?
I think India has a great indigenous knowledge system.
and Indian wisdom about the water. Comparatively, is this new world. But these modern reports and modern way of working, they never have the respect of this knowledge system. And due to this, now the sustainability of water resource in my country, we see everywhere increasing drought and flood, increasing climate change. You know that India is the alone country who raised this voice. The water is climate and climate is water. Only Indians can say this. But I don't know, my all educated class, they pollute the brain and minds, and they are making the macro plans and macro projects. No sustainability. This year, the temperature raising before time. So we are losing the production of the wheat. Now we need a community-driven decentralized water management. The only solution for this country, a community-driven decentralized water management. You know, in the like Jaisalmer, the 700 years before, the all trading by Jaisalmer, way of Jaisalmer, more than 1,500 camels moving. So what is the way India have the water available for that camels? So why we forget this management system? We have one hand conservation and other hand disciplined use of water. We have the skill of the efficient use of water. But the sadful part of my governments, they not have respect of this indigenous knowledge system and Indian wisdom. So this is the main reason we are facing the crisis of the sustainability of the water resource. We losing the real bank of water, 72% underground aquifer is overdraft of my country. 72%. And if we not have the water in our bank, so what is the value of the currency of the RBI? Where the value of the currency of RBI? So we can give the respect to our real bank of water, and we have the bank in the underground aquifers. But we not thinking, we are creating the dams and stopping the rivers, and river is dying. We are never bother about the river right. We are never bother about the ecology and environment. So my dear friend, I am a wrong person in my
You're exactly the right person to be invited. Thank you very much. And I think your point about listening to the people for solutions is really something that I want to get back to. Ridhima, from your perspective in WWF, you've heard what others have thought about the priorities, and let's hear from you.
Thank you. I am very relatively new for this whole panel, and I'm feeling very honored because I think I'm the least experienced amongst the whole panelists. But just to make everyone understand my background, I have been working with the tiger and the carnivore conservation. I myself am a master's in forestry, and I have been working on the conservation of forest as such, not more of tiger and leopard for that matter. And I believe I have been working on the policy level with one of the intergovernmental organization. And everyone knows that river and any management plan of a land, if you are making a management plan or anything which is trying to bring in people from different sectors together to think about what is the best for this piece of land, it should be wetland and river centric. ecologically centric. But that is kind of, in my more than 10 years of my working in this field, I have realized that most of the time, urban cities will be working in silos and protected areas will be working in silos. Even if a river is crossing the most fertile landscape, say for that matter, we were making a management plan on River Ganga crossing across various districts of Uttar Pradesh. And then we realized that riparian vegetation, nothing, nobody's talking about it. I myself am from Allahabad and I see that people are actually living right next to the river. The concept of, the catchment is a big thing with what we talk about, but the basic planning of where the river is flowing and the buffer area of that river as well as wetland is most of the time not in the municipal plan or any plan. Or if it is very distinct. There's no coordination between different people who are managing that particular piece of land. So the first project that I worked on was, everyone must be knowing about Okhla Bird Sanctuary in Delhi. And there we were working on the management plan of the sanctuary as such. And then we just went to ask about the irrigation department that why the water you are not maintaining according to the birds that are migrating and coming to this area. And they had no knowledge about what is going on with the sanctuary, and forest department would not ask them also. So like your report, the key message that the first thing that you talked about is the coordination between interdepartment. I think policy framework should be involving not only stakeholders at the higher level, promising that, okay, we will be giving this much money for the management of this area. It should be ecologically centric, which everyone knows, because metros are getting flooded nowadays, so wetland need to be conserved. So whenever we are bringing those people who have the ecological knowledge of trees as well as vegetation should be a part of these planning.
Thanks very much. Quite a different, refreshing perspective on nature as well as people. Susan, I want to get back to you because Rajendra mentioned a very important role that indigenous communities and the knowledge that they have, how they can be of use at the national level. Could you, from your own experience, give us some examples of where that's really been?
Yeah, I mean, indigenous knowledge, I didn't really know more than anybody else. The organization that I worked with has worked around the country, and everywhere we work, we've seen that there are significant, very, very useful indigenous systems. For example, right now, at the top of my mind are the Ahar Pines of Bihar. It's a participatory irrigation management system that has was from the time of Mauryas. From the time of the Mauryas, that is a flood diversion canal from the rivers, and that has been used for irrigation for hundreds of years. Lately, with extractive technologies, it's fallen into disuse, but I see it has tremendous potential. I mean, the step wells of Rajasthan, the talabs of Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu has got a very, very detailed network of tanks with the irrigation channels fanning out of those tanks. I mean, I'm completely all for, and I have to, because I've got agriculture at the top of my mind. Agriculture is all important because this water-intensive use, the water-intensive rice cultivation, the water-intensive wheat cultivation was not there before. As we've lost our grain diversity and we've lost those indigenous seeds, our agriculture is becoming more and more water-intensive. So I think it's a good year. This is the year of the millets. We all know that millets is not even 1/5 the water that the normal grains use. I think it's a very good year to go back to those traditional seeds and to go back to those. I mean, I'm not a Luddite, I'm not anti-technology, I'm not anti, but I'm just saying there's a lot that the past has to offer that is contained within each specific community, and each, I think it's very important not to say one size fits all. I think it's very important to go to those communities and to ask them what their traditional systems were, what their traditional seeds were, and to build from that. And I think in doing that, we will also, by addressing this, by keeping water at the center, water will always be at the center. Keeping water at the center, water should drive it. I think water use should drive it. I mean, for example, if I can take a minute more, we are working in southern Bihar, which is drought prone, and southern Bihar has these pines, has these surface irrigation systems that I'm talking about. It is very important for us to restore that because southern Bihar comes in the Gangetic Basin and is prone to arsenic contamination. And the more we take water from out of the ground, the more the risk of arsenic contamination is. Right now, the groundwater reports just point a few sources of arsenic contamination. The more we extract water, once we go below 60 feet, we are going to arsenic is going to leach into the groundwater over there. So it's extremely important for us to listen to those traditional systems and to reduce the use of groundwater in southern Bihar if we are going to avoid the crisis.
Thanks very much, Susan. Vikas, if I could turn to you, at the level of the ADB or World Bank and even level of national government, it's very hard sometimes to see the benefits of listening to people that Rajendra Ji and Susan have been talking about, and also look at the traditional cultures. Do you see what are the ways in which we are really wholesalers, if you like, in helping on the water issue, really can get down to the retail level and listen to the communities and listen to people? Are there examples?
Yes, we definitely have been focusing on few aspects when we approach for any funding investments into the states or at the federal level. The key words, I'm going to narrate some of the key words that we definitely keep in our mind. The first one is related to the relevance. How relevant it is for the communities, for the women, for the people at large. How effective it is. What effectiveness it will bring, the investment. How efficient it will be. What efficiency level we can achieve. And how sustainable the project investment would be. Plus, how much development impact it will bring. So these are some of the 5 key words that we always keep in our mind while approaching towards investment proposals. Plus, we always go with the basic principles of planning and designing, while keeping communities and the stakeholders at the core of our planning and designing of the investment proposals. So equity, ecology, and economy. At the end of the day, if the economy is not going to improve, then all these things will not be linked together. And now the elements of climate change and all these things are also basically the elephant is already in the room. So we have to be very careful while taking into account and take the advantage of our technological innovations to integrate in all these aspects.
Do we in the ADB and in our support to governments in the development of our projects have activities that will actually do the kinds of things that Rajendra Ji and Susan mentioned of listening to the stakeholders, the ultimate beneficiary?
Yes. We have a project in Karnataka where the case study was there in our evaluation report. Since last almost a decade, we have been successful in basically convincing the state government of Karnataka to set up an advanced center for integrated water resource management. The beauty of this center is that they are working at the sub-basin level of the Krishna River Basin. And they have prepared the plans, water resources management plans, while integrating all the stakeholders, contributing departments, community at large, like the Water Resources Department is at the core of it, then Agriculture Department, Urban Water local bodies, then we have Planning Department, Technological Department, and the NGOs, everybody is integrated into those aspects. And they have been successful in creating 11, and I am very happy to announce Mr. Rajesh Yadav, he is our project officer for the project at present, handling this project. So this has been the core of it. And then based on these plans, they have come up with water sharing among the stakeholders, which is on evidence-based. Like this is a data-driven thing. We have used technology on evidence basis.
Can I ask the question? So I mean, it's really nice. I would like to understand more about that. And does that plan, is at least a succinct version of that plan, does it go back to the villages, back to the stakeholders, that comprehensive plan that you made?
It is a two-way communication.
Right.
It is a two-way communication. In this particular state, you will be very happy to know the water policy was approved in August last year.
Yes.
It is an exercise. It was usually what we used to hear, the policies are made first and then it is implemented. But here the plans were prepared and then the policy has been formulated. So this has been one of the striking difference. And this policy has been at the core of it.
I just wanted to add a point to, is it okay?
Yeah.
What we also found in that particular case was that a larger initiative by ADB to build on existing policies in the country rather than start reinventing anything. So that was a good case example, and also same with Assam, where we looked at, where the projects looked at, adaptation, the climate adaptation angle of the project. The entire project was designed from that perspective, not just water resource management, looking at other aspects as well. And for Karnataka also, because the IWMI has also played a very important role. That is a CSO that we also met during the evaluation. So these are practices that could be replicated. And what we also found, which is, just from experience, nothing to do with the ADB evaluation or something, there's lots of initiatives going on in India, like the MNREGA program, for example, the rural employment guarantees, wherein there's larger incentives for sub-basin level watershed development type activities, which benefit absolutely the grassroots. And there was a recent study by Down to Earth, which is actually showing how that rural watershed map of India is trending upwards. So that's been really encouraging. And lastly, I just wanted to mention to Ridhima's point, the Nawami Gange scheme, which is looking at all cities along the Ganges. It is actually touching all of these parts, all of these aspects that you mentioned, to look at a city lens and then look at how the river is really, it's the essence of a city anyway. So but ADB's involvement in that particular scheme, these are opportunities right now for during our next country partnership strategy.
Thanks, Sonia. Ridhima, you heard about, you yourself talked about the issues on rural as well as urban and how they're coming together. From your point of view, are there still things that need to be done to make sure that there is a seamless transition between these two sectors, which are sometimes quite distinct?
Definitely, they are quite distinct currently because their aim or target, which I can say, is kind of different. When you talk about different stakeholders, urban and rural as well as protected areas, they are coming together in the stakeholders meeting, but their concept of conserving something is not based on whole of state as such. They are more or less managing that particular aspect of what they have. And the problem that it's not only if one plan and one person committee head is deciding that, okay, this river is flowing across all these different kind of landscape, which have different land uses. One thing that in India is a problem also because we don't have a land use land cover policy as such. So many times very fertile land, the land which can recharge the water underneath is actually being used for converted into maybe a forest land getting diverted for some or the other reason of development, say linear infrastructure. Those kind of things need to be really addressed at the national or state level management plan first. Because then what happens once you have made your plan, then everyone can say that, okay, I have this agenda on my plate and this is not going to, this is how this land should be converted. And if you don't have a land use land cover policy, that is where the stakeholders, even if you are bringing them together, there are a lot of loopholes which are coming into picture. So that is where the nation should focus on, especially like I already mentioned, the water and river centric management plan should be upgraded. And it should not be like very small project or some areas which are benefiting. I am understanding that whenever the project comes, there are few areas which are benefiting. But unless we have a holistic view, this is not going to work.
Thanks very much. Rajendra, you mentioned about, the importance of decentralized water management. And you heard that ADB and government would like to do this. Do you have any advice on how to do the decentralized water management? Sometimes it's very hard for the center or the state to let go. What advice do you have on how that could be a more constructive interaction?
In the last 42 years, I visit my country every state, where the community doing themselves without support of ADB or World Bank or government. They make a sustainable water management model in every part of the country. And not only the water management, they do the climate change adaptation and mitigation while with the water conservation. Why not listening the ADB? Why not seeing the ADB these model? Why not moving the ADBs there? The only model in this world where the community-driven, decentralized water conservation and natural resource conservation, they make change. And that is the time-tested change. That is not a 10-year or 20-year, 42 years. Okay? But no bother about any national government or state government. They can learn from that. And every part of this country, they have the experience. So first we need not participating. You know about the definition of participatory? The participatory, meeting, eating, and cheating. That is the meaning of this word. That is the meaning of this word. I am speaking very sadly. Meeting, eating, and cheating. This is the sense and sound of this word, participatory management. So if really we are bothered about our common future, so we can think the wisdom of community and way of site selection of working. Now, any macro project come and any MLA, they say, oh, my vote is there. You made them there. They don't bother about the geohydrology, about the soil of typology. They don't know. They say, oh, my vote is there. You made that dam there. We made 13,800 dams, but we never listen to any politician of this country. Where the community decide, where they make the recharge, the aquifer, we create the water body there. So I can say in last 42 experience, the community made without any support of your banks and my governments.
And they originate 13 rivers in this country. River called Arvari, Ruparel, Sarsa, Bagani, Jajwali, Sabi, and Mahesura. These 8 rivers in lowest rainfall of this country in Rajasthan. And 2 rivers in Maharashtra, Agrani and Mahakali. And each and Halla in Karnataka. Any government can say, after the independence, how many money is spending on the name of water? Why my river is going dying? So my dear, if you're thinking about the water, so you can think this way, what the community will need. And they are the real decision maker. If we can give the respect to them, they give the very nice design to you, low cost.
Excellent, low cost. We're going to turn to the audience in a second, but I want to ask the same question to Susan and Ridhima on, there's a lot of good intention here to work from macro, as Indrajit put it, down to the community. Any practical advice on how we can do this?
I think it's, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think ADB and the government for sure needs to do some level of, as far as water conservation goes, as far as water management goes, I completely 100% agree with the industry. It has to be local. I mean, of course, in terms of rivers and in terms of larger schemes, the state has to get in, the district has to get in. But as far as the village is concerned, I think control needs to rest within the village. I think capacity will be important when we start talking about things like sewage, when we talk about piped water supply. We have an experience in Tamil Nadu that the piped water supply was installed several decades ago. And when we start working, we always do water testing. So we tested the water and we found that 80% of the water was bacterially contaminated. We're like, oh. So of course, the instant responses, UV filter, RO, this, that, and the other. And then we looked all around and said, clean the tanks. So we started cleaning the public overhead tanks and we said, these are these big tanks, right? But the ones that are in the center of the village, 30,000 liter, 60,000 liter tanks, full of muck. So there were trolley loads of muck that came out. And people were unaware of the process of cleaning it. So one is taking out the muck, then the lime wash, then the disinfecting. All, those small strategies that enable communities, that enabling the fixing of the pipes and all that. Those powers, I think, is very important to rest with the community. And another very important thing that we found is water testing. That the community themselves should be enabled to test their own water so they know the quality of the water that they're drinking. I mean, I'm really talking in a silo right now, but I guess one can cut paste from this experience, right? So, I mean, my suggestion would be, we know that in Tamil Nadu, bacterial contamination is a thing, right? So, all we have to do is give the community the very simple tests to test for bacteria in water. In Rajasthan, we know that it's fluoride. So, the fluoride testing. In Bihar, God knows what it is. There's uranium, and there's arsenic, and fluoride, and there's iron. So we need to enable the community to get the overview. I think that's really important, and I think there's a goal there.
Yeah, I also agree completely with the community involvement. Is not only for the how to manage the water resource. A very important aspect from where we work is like wildlife. Dolphins, where dolphins are, where other birds, endangered birds and animals are, and how they are dependent on the water which is within the village, or the villagers actually know that in this whole area, this is the only water source where we are also drinking and the animal is also drinking. So many times things become very easy when we are working for the wildlife conservation, because the locals know that what is the actual requirement, how you should be doing this rejuvenation or water hole management, and they are very sensitive towards it. It's not like you just make the canal for us and forget about the animals. They are very sensitive towards the animals. So that's why it is very easy in our sector to have an interaction with them and any people who are living in the buffer areas. The second part which I want to touch upon is technology. Definitely GIS is one of the very important aspects. I'll give you one simple example that when we used to do environment impact assessment, and a simple thing that they are trying to dig a canal or something like that in a protected area or a forest area. All we had to do is in the GIS see that which is the nearest water source for people living in that area. How many people are living in that area? So in case if there's no other reason of stopping this canal, we would say yes. So these kind of timely judgments can be taken because of technology, and that should be incorporated in all the projects.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to turn to the audience, whether or not there are any questions. So Nitin, I know that you wanted to follow up, and then we'll have a few more.
Thank you, Manny. I'll just take a couple of minutes to talk about some of the suggestions that I have on the evaluation and what ADB can look at in terms of managing the water resources and handling the pollution. So, based on the experience that we have in water, wetland, and river space, what we think is that allocation of water resources at a basin scale is something which is lacking, and we basically do that at the state level, district level, that sort of platform. But you plan it at basin level, you manage it at local level, as Rajendra Singh was saying, and then see what is the impact. Second thing I want to talk about is committed river systems. Those river systems whose water resources are committed for different uses. Therefore, any reallocation of water resources for environment or for river itself is a hugely challenging task, and we all know that. But there has been some headway in that regard, and I think that is an area which needs to be pursued further for other river systems. We have some success in the case of River Ganga. Of course, many of us don't agree with what the government is saying in terms of that's the environmental flows for the river that needs to maintain, but it's a beginning. Second case is from Ramganga River, which is again part of Ganga. A very small study and initiative that we had with the government of UP, where we try to understand the reservoir water levels and its water resources where it is committed to, which is irrigation and other aspects. And then we somehow reallocated certain quantum of water for environmental flows. And that has started from February 2021, and it is still going on. So these are the kind of things which we need to do for committed river systems, so that your river doesn't flow lean and thin. It still has some life in it. Third thing, which is already happening in case of Ganga, but needs to happen in many other river systems, is to understand and develop the database for the life in the river. What sort of life forms are there in the river? What are the requirements in terms of hydraulic parameters? For instance, a dolphin needs to live or thrive in a river. How much depth it will require? How much velocity it will require? It's a huge knowledge gap. And as part of some of WWF's initiatives, we are doing that. We are testing and piloting that in one stretch of the Ganga, where we want to understand how much depth it will surely need to sustain. The other thing which I want to talk about is demand side management. That is going to hold the key when it comes to water resources management. We have created enough infrastructure. Now the need is basically to ensure that every drop of water is used judiciously. We talk about the biggest user of water, which is the farmer, which is agriculture sector and irrigation. And that's where we thought that in order to revive the natural or freshwater resources like rivers and wetlands, we need to work with these farmers. One of the work that we have done in WWF, a very humble start we had in 2017. We just worked with 300 farmers in one small irrigation canal system. And over the period of 3 years, we pushed the idea of irrigation water use efficiency in a very, very water-intensive cropping area, sugarcane. But with the efforts of the local communities, we were able to save 70 million liters of water from the irrigation command and put that water into the river, which was flowing very close to the canal. And that water is contributing to Ramganga River and then to Ganga. So these sort of initiatives need to pick up. We started with the base of 300 farmers. We are now working with 140,000 farmers.
in 4 districts of Uttar Pradesh in Ganga system. So that sort of models are the ones which needs to pick up, because demand side management will hold the key in the times to come. And the last point which I want to make is that when it comes to, Susan talked about the community-based science or community-based water resources management. We have something called river health assessment, which is basically done by community-led groups. Many people have tried and tested this model, and it's a pretty reasonable model when it comes to awareing the community or sensitizing the communities about what sort of water resources are there in your vicinity, what is the quality of that water resources, and if quality is degrading, what should be done, and how you can contribute to that initiative. So that sort of models we have tried and tested in our organization. Last thing which I want to talk about is that when it comes to water resources management, it's a collective responsibility. Communities, government, multilateral, bilateral agencies, organizations like us have a collective responsibility to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Yes, I saw another. I'll just come to you. There's a hand that was raised.
Yes. Right.
I'll come back. Hold on to the question.
Thank you so much. It's Tarun Shankar. I work with the International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. Thank you, ADB, Independent Evaluation Department, for this evaluation. And, from what I saw, almost $30 billion pumped in water, out of which $10 billion in this part of the world, which is absolutely commendable. I think a couple of suggestions in terms of how the programs and projects should be structured going forward. We are well aware that there's a lot of focus on renewable energy, sometimes disproportionately. And I think the focus needs to be rebalanced onto water. For instance, when renewable energy projects are being supported by ADB, whether it is solar or it is wind. For instance, if it is solar, one should not allow cleaning of the modules by fresh water. That should be put in very, very clearly as one of the requirements on ADB supported projects or multi-lat supported projects. Similarly, on wind, there is a lot of wind capacity coming in states like Gujarat, which are right on the international migratory bird route. And I think effort should be taken that those water bodies where the birds descend and take off should not be surrounded by transmission lines. Similarly, as you are well aware, Water Quality Index ranks India 120 out of 122 countries. And I think all ADB supported or multi-lat supported projects should ensure that the reliance on fresh water and groundwater is kept to a minimum. Whether it is green hydrogen being supported by us or battery storage or what have you, let's ban support of or use of fresh water resources for any of these projects going forward. Unless we together take this kind of an approach, it's going to be problematic and government will have its own priorities, which will always ride roughshod over these requirements. So I'll stop there, but happy to discuss by accident. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karan. And then we've got some guests who come from Bangladesh as well and would like to share the experience, but probably after you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I just got it yesterday. I am Rajesh Chadda from Center for Social and Economic Progress. I've not read the report, but I think I'll take the point that has been mentioned forward. We are working on the issues of climate change, particularly in the context of critical minerals, that is lithium, cobalt, and many other minerals implicated. So in our study at the district level in Jharkhand, and we are doing for 323 other districts now, that mining itself is responsible for a lot of water being contaminated. So with the find of lithium, that inferred resource of 5.9 million tons, suppose it gets we start processing it, there are going to be serious issues of water pollution. And incidentally, a good study that can take it forward is the district mineral foundation, DMFs that have been set up by the government, district mineral foundation funds are supposed to provide clean drinking water. So our study on Jharkhand districts is already out, but we are also doing for 323 districts so that brought me here because I'm very much concerned when the mining takes a kick forward. So apart from many other issues that we have discussed, mining will be a very serious issue, lithium in particular.
Thank you. I'm Professor Munir Kastur. I represent the think tank Institute for Policy Advocacy and Governance. Thanks to Emmanuel, the wonderful guy. We are back from Rajasthan to Delhi and really meet your kind enough to ask me to come. I'll try to speak in a very layman's language. One of the things I hope I didn't miss, this whole water issue, beyond very local and national issues, these big rivers which run through the heart of South Asia, many of them particularly in Bangladesh. I'm not sure what ADB is doing, but I hope you're also looking from a regional perspective because birds, animals, rivers do not have any visa protocol and do not need passport. So they fly, they travel, they flow. And if you're talking about governance and management, the big rivers, which is the lifeblood of millions of people across both sides of the border, there needs to be much more integrated approach. You can't have a good governance of river path on this side of the border and poor management on that side of the border, other way around. So I was just wondering whether your team is looking into cross-border issues, number one. Number two, if so, great. If not, I think you should. And I think it would be good if you take the initiative to bring some of those people like Mr. Rajendra Singh with a lot of on-the-ground experience, and people learn from it. But Bangladesh has done a great job with the limited resources, coastal bank, protection, water management, livelihood of patient people. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing that can happen. So I would strongly encourage bring the best practice of both sides under the same platform. And particularly, I think what you said is very interesting, meeting, eating, cheating. So if you want to get out of this meeting, eating, cheating, I would strongly bring some of the people right from the front. Those who are dwelling every day. We come here in a very posh environment, talk, leave with a lot of thoughts, but we have hardly taken the initiative to bring them here and let them sit in the corner, share their experience. I think that will make a real connect, go through face every day. So that will be my very quick suggestion to my friend. Thank you.
Right. Are there any more questions? Otherwise, we could, yeah, here. I need just one more question. We began a bit late.
Thanks, Manny. So not a question, but just an observation. So I'm Chandan from 3i. So there was a lot of talk about participatory management at the ground level, right? So even from development economics, we know that lack of water has a gendered impact. There's a lot of research on the effect of droughts, especially on women's education. So I guess one observation would be, and something that was missing from the discussion was basically how do we engage more women into water resource management at the local level. And one of the things that can be done is that in India now we have the NRLM through which we have collectives almost in each village. So why not think about some convergence between water resource management and these collectives? We've seen that happen in the case of NREGA, wherein the ministry has basically encouraged convergence between NRL and the NREGA program. And we've seen the effects, positive effects of that convergence as well. So just a suggestion and for panelists to think about on this.
Thanks for those suggestions. I think issues of gender on the learning across countries as well as within countries and on mining issues are really important issues. We're coming to the end, and I want to give the panelists 15 seconds each to give any last reflections and thoughts going forward. If you had only 15 seconds, what is it you'd like to tell this audience about the importance of water issues and how to address them in this country? So we're going to start with no, since you pointed that way, because it's what I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And my only suggestion is like what Rajendra Singh has mentioned. I will only emphasize for two things. One is to develop the sense of ownership. Once we develop the sense of ownership and also bring communities at the forefront for the planning and designing, then everything can be sorted out. So this is
Thank you. Ridhima.
Mine will be the same that I have been talking since beginning. That is ecologically centric national plans will be very much important for conservation of water. So any projects which are coming in, be sure that it is not just affecting at the local level. It should be looking at the larger scale, landscape level, and that should be the criteria for selecting the projects.
Thank you. Rajendra.
Now, I think the time when we understand the name of development, what we are doing. The name of the development we are doing displacement and destruction and disaster. So now, today, it's really bother about the better common future. We can start, we can do the rejuvenation. The rejuvenation is a word comes from Sanatan. Sanatan means Sadev Vidit Nutan Nirman. So my two suggestions, just in 15 seconds. Community-driven, decentralized water management is a solution for the global problem of climate change and global warming, and for the water available for agriculture and drinking water and ecology and environment. You forget every time ecology. So not the time. Without ecology, we can't reach anywhere.
Thank you.
I mean, adding to what everyone has already said, I think it's important to put water security for communities at the center of what we do. Water security for communities and landscapes at the center of what we do. And I think in ADB as well, your water department, I think it should definitely, like we say, gender should not be like that on the top after you finish a project. Oh, what is the gender analysis? Like that, I don't think water should be that. I think water should be at the core. So whether we're talking about energy or whether we're talking about infrastructure development or communities, I think water security for communities and landscape should be there.
Thank you very much. And so we've had a very rich and constructive discussion with many lessons, I think, for those of us in the ADB, perhaps the World Bank Group as well, on really putting water at the center of what we do, making sure that we reach out to the communities and the people on the ground and listen to them carefully and take their views as we plan and design, and taking the broader ecology. It's not just people, but nature as a whole. So with that, please join me in giving my panel a very
And so thank you, Manny, thank you, panelists, for this discussion. And I'd like to invite our co-hosts for this event and the Director General of the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, to come.
Good afternoon. We have heard a lot of different perspectives on the water front. Before I start the discussion about what the government is doing and what my office does, I'd like to just start with Dr. Rajendra Singh. You may not remember me, but if you remember, Andhra Pradesh was the first state to engage with Tarun Bharat Sangh, and around 20 years before, I had led a delegation of officers of Andhra Pradesh to have a study the work done by Tarun Bharat Sangh, and there I got a glimpse of the exemplary work done by you and your organization. In fact, one incident I don't forget. When I reached there, you asked me that if there is anything important, please let me know, because my people generally sleep at around 7 o'clock in the evening. So I told him that, look, I am from North India and leading a delegation of South Indian officers, and they have not got rice for the last 3 days. So please wait for that. And that was arranged. So we all know that water is central to our existence and for our future generations. And this particular session has given us a lot of insights. It definitely make everybody in this hall to rethink about the way we look at water, the way we were thinking of managing it. But I would like to say that every country during the course of development goes through this journey. I will not say it's not a difference of what government has done or what are the acts which it should have done. I'd like to give an example of River Thames in London. Anybody has got, I think a lot of people must be aware of the history of UK. But in the 19th century, River Thames was very dirty and a lot of articles which had said that it was just a cesspool at that point of time. Now, if you go and look at Thames, it's just clean water. So all is not lost. It's part of the journey. And only issue is that, do we have the right intention? Are we on the right track? So I think by and large, all the state governments and the central government have realized the importance of this sector. And every actor is doing its bit to improve the water management practices. Though it says still, of course, there are certain burning issues which still remain. One, pricing of water, which is particularly to the urban areas, and apart from some islands of success, still that issue is there. And second, I would say, once we talk about water, unless we talk about the power supply policies of the state governments, particularly in the rural areas, that discussion will not be complete. And this ever-growing trend of providing free power to rural areas is definitely having a detrimental impact on the groundwater resources of this country. Fine. We all know that it's a state subject. To complement the efforts of the state governments, Government of India has come up with a number of policies in the water sector. To touch a few which particularly deal with conservation and water management. Manrega has been discussed, which is under implementation since the last 15 years. And it has contributed positively towards conservation of water. We have a water policy for the Amrit Kaal Vision 2047, which was unveiled by the Honorable Prime Minister himself. That also talks about extensively about how the water should be managed and how it should be conserved. To name a couple of few schemes, we have this Achal Bhujal Yojana, which talks about community-led water management, and wherever it is being implemented, positive results, we keep hearing about that. We have Jal Shakti Abhiyan for the water stress districts. At the same time, we have got the Amrit Mission for urban areas, and PM Mission Sinchai and Sahi Fasal campaign are directed towards improving efficient water use in agriculture. So one thing I want to assure everybody here that Government of India and the state governments, we are seized of the matter and we are taking our steps how to look at the water sector in refreshing and vibrant and whatever words you can use, because how to conserve it. Now, sir, I'm thankful to ADB to invite me, particularly Manny and his team, and we are going to meet in the afternoon. And this my role of monitoring and evaluation. I'm quite new to this. It's hardly third. I think I completed only third month. So whatever I'm going to talk about the evaluation part, it's based on the little knowledge I've gathered in the last 3 months. So I think there is a lot of scope of collaboration and synergy in the independent IED of ADB and DME. DME is an attached office of NITI-Aayog with a fair bit of independence. And whenever I look at the evaluation aspect, because evaluation of government schemes and monitoring and evaluation both is a very, very important pillar of the entire planning process, because it generates, you see the data and nudges you towards evidence-based planning. So I would like to learn from ADB the kind of framework you have used for doing this study across the countries. Because when I did sit with my team and talk about the evaluation, generally I'm intrigued what kind of framework we should use, how much secondary data analysis should be done, what are the reliable sources of data, should we depend only on the government data or should we look at other sources of data? When you go for primary research, how we should do which makes it representative as well as possible. So these are the things I'm sure in the afternoon we'll sit and find some working solutions and collaboration and working together. So thank you again to the entire ADB team for inviting me.